The exotic soul traveled several times and arrived at a small village by the mountain. After experiencing numerous hardships, it led its family on the road to wealth. However, it was unknown that someone had been secretly watching it for a long time, and finally became the little wife of the cruel prince. Keywords of the novel. Cold Lord Palm Treasure without pop-ups. Download the complete collection of Cold Lord Palm Treasure TXT, and read the latest chapters of Cold Lord Palm Treasure. Chapter 1. Distress. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Distress. The heavens and earth are vast, and Pangu has created a new world. With the sound of his old axe, the sky rises slowly, and countless fragments fall with a clatter. One of them is a large piece called the Blue Falling Continent. The entire continent has been divided among 3 countries, with Xuanji Kingdom being the largest. Yunhua Village is located at its southern end, with the endless Daluan Mountains behind it. At this moment, there was a lack of support. The seedlings in the field were lush green, and there were many children digging wild vegetables at the foot of the mountain. However, at the intersection leading to the mountain, there were a few half-aged children carrying long spears and short knives, planning to go up the mountain. Big brother, have you really become an expert in the Diamond Temple? I'm going too. Suddenly, a chubby girl rushed out and grabbed a boy's sleeve. She was dressed in powder and jade, with a chubby little face and 2 black eyes, which looked so beautiful. The boy's name is Yi Wei. He is tall and sturdy. Looking at his cousin, he frowned. Don't act around. Can you flip over Yunfeng so high? You're not allowed to go. As soon as he finished speaking, a tall and thin girl ran out and said angrily to him. Why can't Xinger go? It's just flipping over a mountain. You're carrying her on your back. This is Yi Yu, the younger sister of Yi Wei. She is in her 2nd year at home and follows her grandmother's personality, being domineering and assertive. Carrying her on your back. You're talking about lightness. 30 miles of mountain road, she's as fat as a meatball. You're going to tire me out. Big brother. You, how dare you despise me? I'm going to tell my grandmother. The chubby girl stopped working and jumped high, shouting. As soon as the boy heard about his grandmother, he immediately became discouraged and reluctantly held her hand. As Yi Yu watched them walk away, she quickly picked up a basket and went home. Half a year ago, the Yi family was in trouble. If it weren't for Xinger picking up a fairy grass, her father would have died long ago. Besides her parents and grandmother, she loved her younger sister the most, and her own elder brother would have had to stay behind. The boys were walking on a steep mountain path, discussing a topic enthusiastically, which was that a fairy had arrived at the Diamond Temple. Yi Wei struggled with carrying his chubby little sister and had to take a deep breath. Hold on tight, it's not bad for me to fall. Don't worry, brother. I'm a piece of candy and I'm sure it won't fall off. Pwai, ha ha ha, do you know what beef candy is? Wei fell on his own and didn't dare to fall on you. Of course I know, it's sweet and gluteny, it's delicious. The little girl pouted her mouth and made 2 clicks, which made everyone burst into laughter. Even the road beneath her feet seemed to be smoother. Suddenly, a tiger roar came from a distance, and Bai Su, who was leading the team, immediately stopped in his tracks. Hurry up, you guys go to the back, let's all get involved. It sounds like a big bug. Damn it, we haven't reached halfway up the mountain yet. How could there be any fierce beasts? Wei put down his sister and quickly drew out his machete, rushing to Bai Su's side. They often hunted together, but never encountered a big guy. At most, they would surround a wild boar or something. The roar of a tiger approached from afar, accompanied by a foul smell. Bai Su looked at the terrain and quickly waved his hand, calling for a few small ones to hide behind the rocks. The 4 or 5.5 big ones fanned apart. After Yi Xing didn't go to Dashi, she dodged by the roadside and her gaze suddenly became sharp, completely different from the cute and silly person she had just seen. She is not an ordinary little girl. After several lifetimes of reincarnation, she couldn't have imagined that her soul would wear out and she would become a village maid. The little girl perked up her ears and heard the sound. It was an ordinary tiger, thinking that there were fewer prey in the deep mountains, so she ran out. The boys were facing a great enemy, nervously guarding the intersection, but saw a shadow leaping past. The tiger was not even aimed at them, and went straight up the mountain. "Let's go, shall we still go?" The direction was right over Yunfeng, and a few timid people started to beat their drums. "I'm not going, go home." Bai Su's inner cedar was wet. If they really had a chance against the tiger, they wouldn't have much chance of winning. At this moment, everything from the Diamond Temple to the experts were all forgotten. Yi Wei was cleaned up by his grandmother when he got home. He was not allowed to eat and had to go to the yard to stand punishment. Even Xinger's coquettishness and cuteness didn't work. "You little bunny, did you cross Yunfeng casually?" "Today, no one is allowed to plead, we need to let him know that he is powerful. It's only been a few years, and he has forgotten how the neighboring mountain died." Now, no one spoke anymore. Yunhua village is very poor, and it is common to suffer from hunger and cold. The villagers often go hunting in the mountains, but rarely go deep into the mountains. One year, a few talented and bold people did not believe in evil, resulting in half of the deaths and injuries. From then on, even if the harvest was not good, the villagers dared not cross half of the mountain. To show her loyalty, Xinger didn't go back to the house, but instead ran to the vegetable garden in the backyard. What kind of person has arrived at the Diamond Temple? That beast doesn't even eat people. While working, she was thinking about her worries. Half a year ago, a fight between Yunhua and Shannon villages not only injured many adults, but also the original owner was mistakenly injured, which led to her arrival. However, she was powerless. What could she do with such a small body? Fortunately, the treasure trove is still there. Although it has been destroyed to no avail, she believes in herself that rebuilding is only a matter of time. Second sister, go find something to eat for my brother, I'm starving to death." Yi Wei was so hungry that he couldn't go to the kitchen and had to ask for help from his sister. There are 3 sons and 1 daughter in the Yun family. The daughter has married out, and the eldest and second sons have also given birth to children. The third son just got married last year, and his family is not very prosperous, so their land is even less. They all rely on the 3 brothers to do odd jobs to support them. "Brother, hurry up and don't let the milk discover it." Not waiting for her to go, a small pudding ran over with a vegetable dumpling. This was the youngest Yizhen in the family, Yixing's younger brother. He was just 6 years old this year and now he is running out of food. The old rice is about to run out, the new grain is not ripe, and more than half of the food is wild vegetables. Yixing quietly walked over and watched him wolf down, feeling a bit uneasy. She used someone else's skin bag and became a family. Her family's basic needs were not solved, and she was still thinking about unrealistic things day by day. Even if an expert came to the Diamond Temple, it had nothing to do with herself. Get rich first, at least let your family have enough to eat. That night, both her parents and younger brother fell asleep, and she quietly returned to the small world where there was a clear spring, an acre of land, and by the way, a thatched hut. There are green wheat seedlings growing in the land, the most ordinary type of wheat seedlings. Is this a travel benefit? Except for 1 acre of land, there seems to be no magical power. Although the crops grow faster than the outside world under the nourishment of the Lingquan, they only grow a little faster. Fortunately, they are like spring all year round and can still store things inside. After watering the field, she went to the thatched cottage again. Apart from a Kong, there was only a simple table inside. Yixing dared not stay for a long time. If someone found out that she was not there, it would be terrible. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Earthquakes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Earthquakes. Yixing had just returned to the Kong when a blue light suddenly flashed outside the window. She was stunned for 2 seconds before jumping off the Kong with a thrust. The shaking that followed confirmed her hypothesis. Dad and Mom, get up quickly. The ground is moving. She bent down and picked up her little brother, and then saw Yazzie ran out, shouting wildly, the ground is moving, come out quickly. It was late at night at this moment, and her voice was particularly piercing. The dogs in the village also started barking wildly. In an instant, the sky and earth shook, and the stones on the mountain rolled down with a thud. Mrs. Yi stumbled out wearing a thin coat, still holding a box in her arms. You don't have to ask, you know that all the valuable items of the Yi family are here. Who else hasn't come out yet? The dark and silly little Jean burst into tears, and old lady Yi breathed a sigh of relief. The children were all there, and their parents should have come out too. With the continuous noise, houses collapsed one after another, and the village also heard cries. Someone must have been buried, and Yi Xing knew it was not over yet. Under the blue light, there must be a ground fissure accompanying it. Milk, let's not separate, hold hands together. If anyone encounters a crack, maybe they can pull it back. The earthquake is here again, not to mention holding hands. It's difficult to stand. The Yi family lay on the ground in a crooked position, and Uncle San suddenly called out, Mother, my mother hasn't come out yet. Chui Wu, what is the situation? Yi Xing was confused. The younger generation all ran out. Why is Aunt San still inside? Wu, she opened the box to get her dowry. I want to go call my mother first. Why did this room collapse? Wu. He struggled to climb towards the ruins, but was thrown back by the earthquake. Uncle San lives in the west wing, right next to Yi Xing. The door frame is still standing upright, and there is a small gap next to it. The house is made of mud, and the people inside may not be able to be killed, but if buried in soil, they will soon suffocate. She used her inner strength and rushed towards the gap, only to hear her grandmother's roar from behind, come back. You're not going to die. She didn't know that Yi Xing had a divine weapon, a life-saving tool in times of crisis. It was also a blessing from heaven that the earthquake suddenly stopped. The Yi family went crazy and ran to the cottage. Uncle San grabbed Yi Xing's foot, and she also touched Aunt San's arm, finally pulling her out of the ruins. Chui, wake up quickly, sob. Yi Xing endured the pain and pushed third uncle away. Old lady Yi also crawled over. Are you still angry? Let's take a look at how people are doing now. The pulse was strong, and Yi Xing breathed a sigh of relief. He quickly checked his limbs and just pulled his arm, only to hear a sigh, Mom, you're suffocating me. She looked again and saw her grandmother's thumb tightly gripping the person, waking them up. Chui, where are you hurting? You scared me to death. Third uncle crawled over again, his voice trembling, it hurts everywhere, where's my box? Quick, my box is still inside. In a moment of desperation, she actually sat up. Although her body was still soft, Yi Xing felt completely at ease. It seemed that she had not injured any bones, which was the advantage of living in a mud house. Its killing power was not significant. Box, just know the box. I don't want my life anymore. You want to scare me to death. Uncle San was really scared. In order to marry his wife, the family owes a lot of debt. If someone dies, they won't have a wife in their lifetime. Upon hearing these words, the two daughters-in-law panicked. They also had a box, although it only contained a few copper coins, it was all their belongings buried in the soil now. Yi Xing grabbed his mother, that's a dead object. It won't break if buried inside. Hurry up and save someone. The crying in the village became loud and heavy rain started pouring down. Mrs. Yi hugged her little grandson and asked them to go and save him. As soon as they left the yard, Yi Xing's heart lifted up, and a crack was not far from her home. It was dark, like the big mouth of a region. Uncle, Dad, you must be careful. The earthquake is probably not over yet, so don't get close to that side. As soon as the words fell, the earth shook again, and Yi Xing was thrown up. She was about to fall into a crack, and she didn't care about anything to save her life. Just as she was about to rush into space, someone suddenly grabbed her collar and it fell heavily to the ground. "Thank you, my lord." Yi Lao almost scared to death and thanked him with a crying voice, "Tsk tsk, you don't need to thank me. This girl is quite sharp-tongued, but unfortunately, she only knows how to talk." Yi Xing was still in a daze. She had been saved. When she looked up, she saw a big black lump before the meeting, with only 2 eyes shining brightly. Oh my, it looked too scary. "What are you still waiting for? Get up quickly and go save someone." After finishing speaking, the servant ran to the side, and the fourth lady was crying in sorrow. It seemed that the fourth grandpa had not escaped. Although the house of the Yi family has collapsed, it has a complete population, and other families are not so lucky. Less than half of them have escaped, except for the elderly and children who go door to door to help dig people. This is a matter of racing against time. Fortunately, every household is a small earthen house. When the sky shines, the rain gradually stops. After counting the number of people, the village chief's heart is also heavy. Su Lu, Mazatu, Wang Er, and their 3 families in our village have all lost their houses and been swallowed by the earth dragon. The remaining families also suffered many casualties, and for a mountain village with only over 40 households, it can be said that the casualties were severe. Yi Xing looked at the crowd and was puzzled. Who was the black man who saved her? That person followed suit all night, but nobody knew him. Suddenly encountering a major disaster, every family is in a difficult situation, and they are dumbfounded and don't know what to do. It's dawn, but where is the food? What are you all doing in a daze? Hurry up and go home to dig for food, and make a little bit of it. Old Lady Yi gathered all her strength and woke everyone up with a loud roar. They ignored their soaked clothes and supported each other in finding their way home. Yi Xing gave his grandmother a big thumbs up. After all, the old lady went through an incident. When the uncle was 10 years old, his grandfather served in the military and never returned. If it weren't for having 3 sons, her in-laws could have sold her. "Mom, it seems like uncle's family has passed away. Should we go and take a look?" "What are you looking at?" "Several families in the clan have casualties. Can you see it? Hurry up and dig for food." Returning to the yard, due to the soaking of rainwater, there were debris and mud everywhere, and I didn't know how to start. The boss first finds the hoe, then goes to the kitchen to dig the pot, and the second brother finds some firewood. These wet clothes need to be dried quickly, and the child can't bear it after a long time. Grandmother had no trace of sadness on her face and arranged everything in an orderly manner. Under her command, the whole family quickly finished their own tasks. Soon news came that the surrounding villages had been hit by disasters, and even many houses in Yuanbao town had collapsed. Without a house that can provide shelter from wind and rain, life cannot be lived anymore. Originally, there was a shortage of crops dug up, and many people planned to visit relatives and settle down with the elderly and children. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Escape. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Escape. Yi Xing is very curious. She has been here for half a year and has never heard of any relatives. Even during the Chinese New Year, only her aunt comes to visit. "Mother, Xiaozhu is going to my uncle's house. Why don't we go?" Xiaozhen, covered in mud, ran back and pulled his mother to ask. Bai looked at him helplessly, pounding the sheets with force without saying a word. The bed was covered in mud and needed to be dried quickly. The men were digging for furniture, and the Yi family had no plans to marry. Being busy, an old man walked over and Yi Xing called him third grandfather, who was his cousin. "Second sister. Law, we're going to our child's uncle's house. There's nothing to eat at home and the water is muddy. If we stay any longer without eating or drinking, we'll have to starve to death. Mrs. Yi is putting away the grain, but fortunately the jar containing the grain has not been broken. Yi Xing has seen it before, and there is only half a jar of wheat inside, which cannot be eaten for a few meals. Grandma smiled and said, his second uncle, you are so lucky. Uncle Duching's family can provide assistance, but my mother's family is not moving anymore. It's really not possible, so we can only go escape. Grandpa San sighed and left. At this moment, even if he is not a close relative, he cannot accept it. No one can help anyone. Yi Xing looked at the wheat field in his eye space, and it was strange to say that after the earthquake, the wheat ears inside turned yellow overnight. Depending on the situation, they would be harvested in a few days, and when there was a shortage of food, they would not starve to death. After the earthquake, the well water became turbid and there was still a muddy smell after being left for half a day, and the river water even stopped flowing. The three sons looked at their mother, and their wives dared not speak. In the end, their eldest grandson spoke up, "Milk, let's go south too. At least it's warmer over there. I heard there are also many jobs in the south. When I grow up, I can earn food with my dad." After listening to her grandson's words, Mrs. Ye's expression also eased. After thinking for a while, she finally made up her mind, since we're heading south, let's go visit your uncle's house. Anyway, he's always my younger brother. After all these years, we should also bury our parents' graves. The three brothers looked at each other with surprise on their faces. Finally, the old lady understood that in the countryside, without an uncle's family, she couldn't hold her head high. In order to borrow food, the mother was hurt by her uncle. But after so many years, let's take everything seriously. Suddenly, tears came from around Yi Xing. It turned out to be San Auntie. Her mother's family was not far from here, and she was also the eldest daughter of the family. She was very worried about her parents and heard that she was going on a long trip, so she burst into tears. "Third wife, if you can't rest assured of your mother's house, let's go with third. However, we need to hurry back tomorrow morning. We can't wait. If it's too late, you'll have to go south by yourself. Third son, do you remember the way to uncle's house? It's Wujia village in Nanjing town. I know the place name." Mrs. Yi nodded and instructed her son, "Bring all the food that can be cooked over here. This little grain needs to be fried until it's cooked. It's delicious on the way, and there are also blankets and clothes that need to be dried." The next morning, the old lady commanded the departure. The Yi family didn't have a cart, only a hand-cart unicycle filled with miscellaneous items. Uncle San went to the Yu family but didn't come back until the morning. Fortunately, he was given some food, so there should be something to eat on the way. As we walked to the village entrance, we saw family after family walking outside. Those with good conditions had a cart, while those with bad conditions were like her home. A unicycle pushed luggage and elderly people, and some even hiked, carrying luggage on their shoulders. Before reaching the official road, everyone was exhausted. The road was not only muddy, but also filled with a lot of gravel. It was difficult to push the unicycle alone, and 6-year-old Xiaozhen couldn't walk anymore. Uncle and father had to take turns carrying it. "Mother, Aunt San has returned to her mother's house. Why don't you and Auntie go?" Yi Xing finally couldn't help but ask his mother in a low voice, "Your aunt is getting married far away, and her family is not here." My mother didn't want to mention her own family, so she didn't continue to ask. It's strange to say that there's no information about my grandmother's family in my memory. Is my mother also getting married far away? Mom, the area in front is still a bit flat. Let's take a break. Uncle's head and face were covered in sweat, obviously struggling, and Mrs. Yi couldn't walk anymore. "There is a ditch over there, boil some water to drink, and don't move the water you bring. You can eat less rice, but you can't lack water. There are already several houses on the flat ground, all from the same village. Everyone greets each other and needs a companion to escape, otherwise it is easy to be robbed. Everyone's expression was very depressed, and who was willing to leave home? The pessimistic mood spread, and no one wanted to speak. Fortunately, the water in the ditch was not too muddy, and a few children also picked up firewood. Yixing quietly sneaked into some spring water, and she didn't dare to exchange it all. This secret, she didn't want to be discovered yet. "Mom, you can hold Xiaozhen and ride in the car later. These days are still long, I dare not tire out." "Okay, we'll just reach the official road ahead. The road should be easier to walk." Approaching noon, they finally embarked on the official road, which was filled with refugees, especially many wounded. "Mrs. Yi, let's walk together from our village, so we can have some care along the way." Old Lady Yi quickly nodded, wondering if the village chief had any knowledge. His family not only had food, but also had many delicacies. Despite having only one son, they had a cart, which was not too embarrassing. If there is a day of food shortage, there will definitely be robbery, and only with a large number of people can we be safe. When passing by the town, there were also many barbarians and ruins everywhere. Not to mention doing business, there was not even a single person left. It seemed that they had already fled. "I can't buy grain either." Mrs. Yi calculated how many days she could eat from storing grain, but when it got dark and rested, all she had was water to drink. "Let's keep that bit of food on the road and eat it. I can't walk without strength. Anyway, I'm going to sleep, and it's okay to be hungry. I only gave a few children some wheat grains." Yixing quietly stuffed his own into his father's mouth, and he pushed the car. How can he do without eating? Relying on the darkness again, he changed all the water. "The water here is really sweet," the old lady slammed her mouth. She gulped down a mouthful of water, and strangely enough, she was starving just now. After drinking 2 bowls of water, she didn't feel hungry anymore. "Xinger, the water here is really sweet. Let's go fetch another bucket." Xiaoye also felt that the water was sweet. Just now, it was their sister who went there, so she wanted to fetch more. "I'll go tomorrow. The bamboo tube is full and I can't take any more." She thought to herself, this water is in space, it can be drunk at any time. The wheat in space has already matured, and she is gathering her strength to harvest it. I wonder if she can use her mind. That night, she quietly hid behind a tree and flashed in. The yellow ears of wheat had already bent their heads, and Yixing worked hard to mobilize her mental energy. Half a day later, she opened her eyes in frustration, but there was no response at all. She had no choice but to pick up the sickle, which she had hidden in the chaos yesterday. Recalling the memories of the original owner, she reached out and picked up a handful of straw. Fortunately, the sickle was sharp enough, although it was slow, she soon collected a piece of it. This piece of land was already not big. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Heavy Rain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Heavy rain. The cut wheat was placed on the roadside, and when she came to look, it was already dry. She picked it up and casually threw it, causing the wheat grains to fall off, saving a lot of trouble. Yixing worked tirelessly for half a night, easily collecting what needed to be harvested and planting what needed to be planted. As soon as he came out to sleep for a while, he was awakened by the cold rain. It was raining, and for those who were fleeing, life was really difficult. "Hurry up, cover it with a raincloth. If the blanket gets wet, you won't be able to carry it." Mrs. Yi shouted anxiously, and everyone around her woke up, but there was only a little oilcloth covering one side and not the other. The rain was pouring heavily, with no intention of stopping. At this moment, not to mention the blankets, everyone had become drenched in soup, shivering with cold. "Sister Yi, it's not possible to just stay like this. I remember there's a local temple ahead. Let's go, we must find a place to take shelter from the rain." The village chief came over in a raincoat to discuss, and without hesitation, Mrs. Yi immediately arranged for her sons. She had originally planned to wait for her youngest son, but the heavy rain never stopped. The 4 or 5 families set off on the road together. In order to alleviate everyone's burden, the old lady didn't get on the car and only put Yijin on it. But last night, she only drank 2 bowls of water and walked. Yixing also began to feel dizzy and swayed up and down. Xinger, Xinger. Hurry up, she's going to faint. After an unknown amount of time, Yixing opened her eyes in the car. It was already dawn, and she touched her thighs, which hurt so much. Just now I bumped hard, how am I in the car? Looking at her grandmother with a pale face next to her, she quickly sat up. Oh, you're awake. Here, drink some water first. At this point, the rain had already decreased significantly, and it seemed that the temple had not been found yet. She struggled and jumped down, even her younger brother was covered in mud for her. Mom, everyone is starving. Let's have something to eat. Uncle couldn't help but feel the heaviest burden on their brothers. Where, go tell the village chief grandpa that we need to take a break. But there was water on the roadside, not even a place to sit. After a few sips of water, Yixing felt much better and jumped down. She understood that she was hungry because the wheat grains were too rough. She didn't actually eat much along the way. Good star, why did you jump down on your own and let your father hold you? Mrs. Yi hugged her with heartache. Just now, when she rolled her eyes, it scared her to death. She thought her granddaughter couldn't live anymore. The village chief and the others were also exhausted. When they heard that the Yi family needed to rest, they all stopped. He even went to the front to find a forest and asked everyone to go to it. There were leaves blocking it, so it would be better. After resting on this journey, they set out on the road again. Fortunately, they soon found the dilapidated temple because it was not on the official road and there was no one inside. Men, go out and find some firewood. We can take shelter from the rain here, at least we can dry our clothes. After he finished speaking, he led his son out. The village chief and his wife were injured by a collision, and his daughter-in-law took 3 more children. Xiaoye went over to help, and as fellow travelers, we must help each other. Although the temple is very dilapidated, it is still quite large inside. No matter how big it is, it cannot light 4 or 5 fires. So we discussed that women and children should rest in the back, separated from men. After all, their clothes need to be taken off and baked. Each family is eating their own dry food in tacit agreement. Fortunately, it hasn't been long since they came out. Although it's not much, they haven't run out of food. Of course, it's impossible to compromise with each other. The future is uncertain, and we don't know how long this kind of life will last. Auntie, it's Fengxian County ahead. I wonder if there has been any disaster over there. After listening for a while, Yixing realized that Feng County was only a second largest county to the capital city. In the past, the men in the village also went there to do odd jobs because they had more work to do. The interviewee is my uncle's mother, who has 2 sons and a daughter, both of whom are not young and can be considered strong in the team. Unfortunately, both in-laws died in the earthquake, and Uncle Ye's mood is very low. Look at this temple, Grandma said, and Yixing understood. Although the temple was dilapidated, it did not collapse. It seems that there is no disaster here. Feng County should also be fine, but there are many people who have escaped here. I wonder if they can enter the city. The number of people that a county can accommodate is limited. A large number of victims are likely to cause riots. Generally speaking, obstacles will be set up at the city gate, such as collecting money to enter the city. Of course, if good officials are met, kanji tents will be set up outside the city gate to help refugees. Upon hearing these words, the excited ones who had just been excited stopped talking. Although they had a few coins in their arms, the house was gone and they had to build it in the future. They wished they could split a piece of money. How could they have the money to go to the city? The men carried the firewood back, and because it was too wet, smoke was everywhere in the room. They separated their site with luggage. Under the leadership of their grandmother, the women took off their clothes and carried wooden sticks by the fire. Oh, why is Shinger's leg blue? It was a big bruise, and she touched it, grinning in pain. It should have been in the car. I felt extremely sorry and gently rubbed it for her. Mother, it's no longer painful. She lay in her warm embrace, finally dissipating some of the chill along the way. She was not stingy this time, she changed all the water. Since she was on the same road, this benefit still needs to be given. Unfortunately, she won't be able to return to the space tonight. Your second daughter is so old. A few years ago, she looked like a little cat. I remember the time the Bai family came to make a scene, and this child's head was smashed. Is the Bai family causing trouble? Yi Xing was stunned. Didn't her head break when she fought with Shannon? How is it related to the Bai family? Cough cough, it's all over now. Don't mention it anymore. Stone daughter. In law. Why did you leave alone without being with the second and third? Humph, those two heartless people said we killed our parents-in-law. This is a natural disaster. Who can blame them for not running out? The child's father and my two kids have all shed blood from their fingers, and unfortunately they haven't survived. After speaking, she wiped her eyes and her daughter kept her head down. Miss Xiaohua, are you cold? Sit over here. Xiaoye couldn't stand it and gave her a hand. Uncle Air and Uncle San are also crazy. Mom, just say a few words less and let Dad hear it and feel sad again. TSK, look at me. My daughter doesn't even face my mother. What's the use of me raising you? The child didn't say anything wrong. Don't say this again in the future. When this hurdle passes, let's make a good grave for the second old man, and those two brothers can also figure it out. Although there are no dead people in the village, it is unknown whether one's old bones can go back during this escape. Being buried at home may not necessarily be a blessing. They spoke softly, but the men outside were not too pessimistic. Feng County must be fine. We need to try to find more work. If life is tough, it's better. When we earn money, we'll go home and build a new house. Uncle, will this government have relief money for such a big disaster? It would be great if it could be tax-free. The annual tax is about 30%, and it is certain that there will be a lack of income this year. If we pay the full amount of tax again, even if we lay down new crops, we will still have to go hungry. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Collision with a wall. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Collision with a wall. The village chief remained silent. Based on his experience, not to mention reducing taxes, not adding military service is already considered good. I heard that the north is not peaceful again. Before the earthquake, the town chief summoned them and asked each village to report a list. If there are 2 or more male households, they may need to draw one. Let's get through the difficult situation first. De Zheng. Does your father still not believe it? Yi Hu has been in the army for over a decade. If it weren't for Yi Wu's ability, these children wouldn't be able to support him. My dad must still be alive, as my mom said. She never dreamt of it before, so a person must be alive. Yi Jing comforted himself, and Yi Ying nodded repeatedly. The clan wanted to repair his father's grave, but his mother didn't do anything, firmly believing that he hadn't died. You may not know that the emperor is going to conscript again. The northern desert has been drought-stricken since last year, and I heard that even the grass has withered. They have no food left, so they must come and grab it. Yi Jing dad went to northern Xinjiang back then. Yi Xing lay in her mother's arms, but her ears extended to the other side. She found that all other abilities had disappeared, except for her spiritual power, which was very good in both sight and hearing. Grandmother is really difficult, no wonder she looks older than her peers. Although she keeps moving all day, her face always looks bad. Milk, you drink water. She handed her the water bottle, which contained a freshly filled spiritual spring that had not been boiled, and the effect would be much better. Be good, drink it yourself, you're not thirsty for milk. Under her insistence, old lady Yi still drank half a tube. It was her granddaughter who gave it, this water is so sweet. After a difficult journey, the group finally arrived in Phong County. They looked at the tall gate tower and stopped in the open space in front of the gate. The city gate was indeed closed, and upon inquiry, they found out that it was only open for 2 hours a day. When outsiders entered the city, each person had to pay 5 copper coins. Isn't this robbing people? Only by doing odd jobs can we earn a few. Uncle, do you really want to stay? I won't leave. After a while, I'll have to go back to the village. I heard I found a job, and with the guarantee of my employer, I won't be charged at the entrance. After all, he is the head of the village and bears the responsibility. The other 3 families also plan to stay. The road is too difficult, and they have not personally joined in. The Yi family decided to continue heading south and go to their uncle's house according to the original plan. Moving forward, there were noticeably fewer people on the road, and the weather was fluctuating. They also walked faster because the food had already bottomed out, no matter how unpleasant it was. The fork in the road ahead is the way to the village. You guys just wait here, I'll go take a look with the boss. Grandmother covered the son with one hand and pointed ahead with the other. It has been over a decade since she returned, and it is still unknown whether she can enter the door. The second person didn't feel at ease and wanted to follow, so he reminded his nephew a few words and lifted his leg to rush up. The wheat here is all grouted, siblings. If we can go to my uncle's house, let's have some food to eat, right? Auntie Chi, although she is careful and thoughtful, her husband and children are her heaven. I'm afraid it's difficult, according to the father of the child. When we split up, because my father-in-law was not around, our family almost left home with nothing. In the cold winter of the 12th lunar month, they were extremely hungry. My mother took my uncle to borrow food, but they came back empty-handed. Otherwise, the family would not have been able to pass that winter. What's there to be afraid of? If you don't want to keep us, I'll be a wheat customer with my dad. The wheat here is about to ripen, and if we work hard for 2 months, we can definitely save money. Yi Wei is 15 years old. He is a newborn calf who is not afraid of tigers. He stands on the wind with great vigor and speaks bold words. But Yi Xing had already had an idea in her heart. As she passed by Phong County, she calculated that there were too many people fleeing, and there must be many doing odd jobs. The wages would be very low, which was not a good path. However, with the increase in the flow of people in the county, doing a small business would definitely be good. Food is the top priority for the people, and it is best to have a snack stand. Although the profit is not high, the cost is also low, which is very suitable for her family. After waiting for a full 2 hours, they finally returned. Looking at the 3 long shadows, Yi Xing knew it was hitting a wall. Uncle's mother was about to ask, but he pushed her away. Let's go, we've discussed with our mother. The village chief and the others will stay in Phong County. We have hands and feet, but are we still afraid of going hungry? As soon as he finished speaking, he heard 2 gurgling sounds, which couldn't be blamed on Yi Wei. After finishing his last meal in the morning, he didn't know where the next meal would be. Mrs. Yi was stunned as her sons put her in a car. It turned out that they had closed the door and burned paper in front of the grave. Uncle, have you and Dad agreed yet? Do we have a place to stay? This question is very important. If it's sunny, it's okay to sleep outdoors, but it often rains these days and the bedding cannot be dried. It's not good if it lasts for a long time. First, let's go outside the city. As soon as your father and I find a job, we'll have a solution. With so many people, it may not be easy to find a job, right? She spoke slowly, and Uncle was already very worried. His face turned even darker upon hearing this. Don't worry too much, children. We can definitely find a life. This is to comfort our family, but it sounds more like comforting ourselves. Yi Xing didn't intend to shut up, she made a sideways movement. Listen, what's shouting in the field? What's there, isn't it just a toad? As soon as he finished speaking, he looked at his little sister and was stunned. Why did she smile so strangely? Dad, this is not a toad, it's a field chicken crowing. Its meat is so delicious, have you tried it? Of course I've tried it before, but it's not easy to catch. Dad was also mischievous when he was a child, and he grilled everything he caught, making it sticky and not very delicious. We don't want to eat, we can grab it and sell it for money. My mother reached out and touched her head. My daughter is probably starving and silly. She can catch one of these things in half a day. Who would buy it and eat it for money? It's even difficult to satisfy one's own hunger. Shinger, tell Nai how to sell this thing for money. My grandmother, who had been silent for a while, suddenly asked. She firmly believed that this granddaughter was a lucky star, and since she saved the boss, this idea has been buried in her heart. If the field chicken is ready, it will taste even fresher than pork. Rich people will definitely like it. Let's go catch it tonight and sell it to restaurants in Fong County, and we can earn the first money. This is her first bucket of gold. With capital, she can start a small business. Uncle is right, they have hands and feet, and they definitely won't go hungry. Looking at her excited expression, no one can bear to splash cold water. Will the field chicken wait for you to catch it? They can jump, and why catch them at night? That's even more invisible. Don't you believe it? Dad, you see there's a lot of hay over there. Let's cut it and make some torches, which will be useful at night. They didn't know that field chickens have a characteristic that they won't move when they see light. When they arrive in Fong County, they will find a way to sell a recipe and at least create a shelter from the wind and rain. After listening to her explanation, everyone was also skeptical, but with the support of her grandmother, her uncle and father allowed her to command. They not only prepared torches, but also bags, waiting for the darkness to break through and show off their skills. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Trial Dishes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Trial Dishes. The sound of frogs in the rice fields at night was particularly loud among the numerous wheat fields. When Yixing arrived, he had already spotted it because it was located in the north and there were not many fields with water. They lit their homemade small torches, as the little girl said, catching them accurately. The agile little frog during the day was stunned and wouldn't move as long as it was illuminated. Quickly, grabbing 2 pockets, Yixing rubbed his groaning stomach and resisted the urge to slaughter. The field chicken must be killed and eaten as soon as possible. Although it is beneficial to crops, I can't care too much for survival temporarily. Can this really sell for money? Uncle once again questioned. In fact, he really wanted to try the taste, mainly because he was hungry. However, the old lady entrusted the decision-making power to her niece, and the little girl remained silent. Everyone had to endure it. Definitely, let's work harder tonight and try to grab more bags. Tomorrow, we'll go to the restaurant so we can sell more money. She's also hungry, but she can't eat for her future livelihood. The next day at the city gate, they took out all their belongings. There was nothing they could do, but she was still too young to push the car. Even if she went to the restaurant, she might not be able to catch a ride. She had to follow an adult. Yixing took her father, and the father and daughter smoothly entered the city. As soon as he entered, he faced a straight street, which was the busiest East Street in Fong County. Yixing was still looking around, but his father whispered, "Daughter, why don't we go to the market? Taverns are not where the poor go." He felt scared in his heart and regretted not letting his elder brother come. "Dad, getting these into the market is like wasting your time. Not only can't you afford them, but there's also no guarantee that someone will want them. You don't have to talk later, just listen to your daughter." She shook the braid on her head and today asked her mother to help her tidy it up. Because she was fleeing, she couldn't tidy up her body, but her head and face were clean. "Just now I inquired outside the city. The largest restaurant here is on East Street, called Xiangman Tower, and the second largest is across from it. Its name is also not bad, called Xiangxiangxia. Looking at the shiny golden plaque, I asked my dad to push the car towards the back alley. "Girl, why don't we go to the largest one and come to this house? This shop sells well, it's right to listen to my daughter. This is a business case, how can you make it clear in a few words?" The father and daughter arrived at the back door of the restaurant, where they happened to be serving groceries. This was the only time of the day when they opened the city gate, so they didn't rush to the same place. "What are you doing? Didn't you see that this place is busy? Let's move aside a bit." The person looked at their clothes and knew they were fleeing, waving their hand to drive them away. "Oh, there's a lot of excitement in the early morning. We're also here to deliver the goods. Please take a look, shopkeeper." At this point, the momentum is full, and if it weakens even a little, it will be difficult to achieve anything. Oh ha, people are not big and their tone is not small. Our shopkeeper is visible to everyone. The person tilted his eyes and looked down upon him. The reason why he had no worries was because Yi Xing and the others didn't understand the situation. The shopkeeper couldn't come now and would have to spend an hour at night. Go and pass on a message to the shopkeeper. If you want to become the boss from the second place, today is an opportunity. This person has a shrewd expression on his face. Generally speaking, the person in charge of collecting dishes in the restaurant is either a member of the owner's family or a confidant of the shopkeeper. He must be doing something, and he doesn't understand this. Sure enough, this person's face suddenly changed. Following Yi Xing's gaze, she looked upstairs and understood her meaning. Her face couldn't help but smile, but just as she was about to speak, Yi Xing pulled her father to sit on the side steps. Passing by, the car even hammered, and a gurgling sound came from inside. The person stared at them for a few breaths, then waved and called for a young man, whispering a few orders. The child ran away along the alley, and Yi Xing finally breathed a sigh of relief. The matter was halfway done. She touched her stomach, pulled out a water bottle from her waist, and handed it to her father. "Drink some water, if everything goes smoothly, maybe we can have lunch. It's been almost 10 days since I came out, not to mention lunch. I've been eating wheat grains every day, and since yesterday, I've only had water in my stomach." After a while, the guy followed a little old man behind him, looking over 50 years old, not fat or thin, but also somewhat dignified. "Are you looking for me?" He stopped in front of the car and looked at the bags in confusion. "Are you the shopkeeper here? It's hard to talk on the roadside. Can you come in and discuss?" At this point, there were already many people, and several idle people stood by the car. Some even wanted to touch their bags. "Okay, you guys push the things in." The shopkeeper didn't hesitate and directly led them into the courtyard. He had 2 stools pulled up and sat down on the porch. Yi Xing looked at this posture and without saying a word, he untied a bag and reached out to grab a field chicken. "Do you have this dish here?" The shopkeeper was startled, and when he saw clearly that it was not a toad, he also said angrily, "What's the point of eating such a little thing? I heard you're quite talkative. The second one has become the first one. Yeah, this thing doesn't look impressive. How about borrowing a stove and I'll make a plate for you to taste?" A restaurant, if you want to build a reputation, is nothing more than good wine and good food. Coupled with good service and good venue, you can be the second best, and other aspects are definitely not bad. A few good dishes are the ace. The shopkeeper looked at her for a while and probably felt that this child was very special. Although she was dressed in rags and had a dull father, her confident tone and expression were admirable. "Okay, I have to leave the kitchen at the very beginning of the hour. I can't miss today's business." Yi Xing calculated that there was only about 1 hour, enough. She brought scissors and instructed her father to help her cut her hair. While peeling and removing her organs, she quickly tidied up a small plate. Because the shopkeeper spoke up and allowed her to use the ingredients in the kitchen, her father sat under the stove and helped her make a fire. I have been here for half a year now. The children of the Yi family have their own responsibilities, and the original owner was specialized in making fires. However, she never mastered this skill, so she had to change positions with her cousin and go to the chopping board to cut vegetables for her. I saw her skillfully shred and smash the ingredients, and then took out a few chili peppers from the space. The people here eat cornice, although it is also spicy, it does not have the fragrance of chili peppers. If you want to make a splash, you need to come up with a unique treasure. The two of them were hungry with their chests pressed against their backs, and their sense of smell was quite sensitive. When they cooked scallions, ginger, and garlic in one pot, the fragrance rushed into their minds. Dad, make the fire burn up. After cooking and frying, the fragrant fried field chicken came out of the pot. The shopkeeper was already attracted by the aroma and waited by the pot for a long time. The smell is good, but I don't know how it tastes. Is it too late to wait for the table? Yixing didn't dodge for a moment and still had to talk about something. That's not a short sentence. The spicy and smooth field chicken finally entered the mouth, and the shopkeeper had also seen the world before. Just as he was about to speak, a few people came in from outside. When the door curtain was lifted, I saw the shopkeeper jump up because there was something in his mouth and he could only stutter. Yixing could hear clearly that it was his employer. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Food. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Food. Lao Lu, what are you eating here? It tastes so fragrant. Dong Jia, you're here. She made this, please try it. He easily swallowed what was in his mouth, stuttered and saluted, unable to say the name of the dish, then pointed to Yixing. Oh, little girl, can you still cook? The big black man looked at her with a hint of mockery in his tone, while the owner picked up his chopsticks and took a bite, opening his eyes wide as the food entered his mouth. Smooth, fragrant, tender, salty, spicy, and delicious. It's much smaller than chicken. Is it a bird? This was all he could think of. Then he picked up another chopstick and put it in his mouth. The other two were also greedy, so they sat down and picked up the chopsticks to eat. Just now, what he heard was real. Old Lu was trying dishes, so let's try them out. Yixing silently watched as a plate quickly bottomed out, and then calmly said, this is a field chicken, scientific name is frog, how about it? It tastes good, isn't it? Puff, those three people were almost about to spit it out, but the thing had already been swallowed clean. Where could they get it out? At that moment, my face turned blue. That was a toad just now. How dare you say, who sent you to poison? Ah, this reversal is too fast, Yixing quickly explained, this is not a toad, it's a frog, a frog. It's not poisonous. I've grown from a snack to a big one. Look, isn't it okay? As soon as he heard that there was no poison, the big black man couldn't help but tap his mouth. The taste was good, so he softened his expression. I've seen a green frog in a rice field, you're talking about this, right? Looking at the little girl and nodding desperately, he said again, did you catch it to sell? Yes, I grabbed 4 bags at home. If your restaurant added this dish, it would definitely add a bit more popularity. She was very confident, and these people looked extraordinary. If they could empty this plate, they would definitely feel fresh. There shouldn't be any restaurant across from them. This dish is good, but the ingredients are rare. If we launch it, we'll have to let you handle it. Alright, if you can guarantee the supply, we'll accept those few bags. The white and clean owner spoke up. In ancient times, there was no farming, and this dish could only be seasonal. She had no plans to farm it yet. Compared to raising it, chicken and duck are obviously easier. I can guarantee the supply for 3 months, and if it's over the holidays, I won't be able to catch it. Okay, 3 months is 3 months. Lao Lu, you can estimate the selling price, give a nice name, and calculate the quantity for the next round. Well, since we need to supply, this recipe can be given away for free. I still have 2 good recipes in my hand. Do you want to give them a try? There are chili peppers in the dish, but those people have ignored it. It's strange to say that there's nothing left in the space, but there's a chili garden. These days, there's nothing to do. She has dried a lot of chili peppers and wants to take this opportunity to sell them. Oh, the little girl is amazing. She even knows the recipe. Please write it down and take a look, the chubby man said for the first time, brother and is joking. A country girl, I'm afraid she can't even hold a pen. Can you tell me what else? The owner of Xiangxiangxia was very kind and quickly helped her out of the siege. Okay, let me make 2 dishes for you, gentlemen. If it works, I'll be responsible for the church. A few people became interested and asked the shopkeeper to take her to the kitchen. The plate just now was too few and not enough to fill their teeth. Yi Ying followed her daughter with trembling fear. Can rural cuisine catch the eye of the nobles? He quietly tugged, and Yi Xing turned around and said with a smile, Dad, I can do it well. Can you help me make a fire? The dish just now was actually quite spicy, but those few people ate it without blinking, indicating that she usually eats condiments like Zhuyu. She plans to make a spicy chicken and another water-boiled meat slice. Zhuyu definitely can't make this kind of fragrance. Yi Xing rolled up his sleeves and went through a series of steps in his mind. He had never done it before in his life, and the fire here was not easy to control. It was important to control the temperature. Only their father and daughter are left in the kitchen. After all, this is a secret recipe. If the price is not agreed upon, it cannot be leaked. It seems that this family is very particular. The chicken was chopped by her father. She only cut the meat herself and prepared all the ingredients. She took out the chili peppers from the space, but fortunately, her father had already lowered his head to burn the fire and didn't see her movements. There were too many things he hadn't seen in this kitchen, so he didn't suspect it. When 2 hot dishes were served on the table, the black man was the first to speak. What is this? I just took a bite and it seems very spicy. Yes, this is called chili pepper, which is a seasoning from Hoodie. This fragrance is unique to it. In fact, she also added some Sichuan pepper powder inside, and there is only 1 Sichuan pepper tree in the space, which cannot be supplied in large quantities at the moment. The 2 dishes were unprecedentedly popular, and the Huang family immediately made a deal. They each gave 2 taels of silver to each recipe, and the live field chicken was weighed at 8 per kilogram, which was more expensive than pork. Upon hearing this, Yi Xing found a way out and agreed on the price of chili peppers. She didn't want much of it, so she agreed to pay the same price as Cornus. At that moment, he called his father in and signed his hand. Yi Ying looked at the 2 large silver ingots, his hands trembling with excitement. Only the black one looked at Yi Xing thoughtfully. The father and daughter followed the shopkeeper out to weigh. Master, are they really refugees? This girl doesn't cook like a farmhouse. I've been to their house, and when it comes to it, I even saved her life. It was too dark that night, she probably couldn't recognize it. If it weren't for those eyes, he wouldn't have remembered. Laoan, you are always suspicious. This place was set up a few years ago. Who would have thought of this place? If I were to say, settle down, I would definitely not be able to find that person. Be cautious, that's right. If you take care of this company, we will leave tomorrow. This time, Qizhou has been affected by the disaster, but the government has not yet provided food relief. There must have been a lot of greed in the process, and I have to take some responsibility. Upon hearing this, both of them were taken aback. If you turn around, your whereabouts will be exposed. That person is just favored by the Holy Spirit, which is too dangerous. Don't worry, Laoan will handle this matter. When I finish writing it, you can take it and go find Chao Yushi. This person is upright and will definitely report it to the emperor. The governor of Qizhou is the mistress of the 3rd brother. If you are impeached this time, go tell Lao Zhong and find a way to get Xiao Qin to come. If it were his person here, it would be much more convenient to act. These Yixing didn't hear her, her attention was all on weighing, and 4 bags weighed a full 100 pounds, find a large jar, add some water, and keep them inside. Kill as much as you use, and make sure to eat fresh food. Yixing went to the kitchen again. He knew how to cook, and soon the chef mastered the recipe. When the father and daughter came out, it was just past noon. Dad, let's go buy some food. Grandma and the others must be starving. The shopkeeper gave them a brand, and with this supply certificate, they won't have to pay for entering the city. Now that they have the money, the top priority is to find a place to live. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Building a Shelter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Building a Shelter. They went to the snack stand and bought some steamed buns in addition to mantou. Yixing insisted on this. He hasn't eaten meat and vegetables for so long. Now that he has money, he must improve it. Xinger, does all the money for selling this recipe give you milk? He was reluctant to part ways. According to past practice, their brothers could keep 20% of their wages, usually given to their own mother. Dad, it's a special period now. We need to survive first. Don't worry, with my daughter here, the hard times won't be too long. She looked up and smiled at her father. Yi Ying's heart suddenly brightened up. Yes, her daughter is so smart and worried about not having a good day. In addition to the 4 taels of silver, there was 800 yuan in her pocket, which was the income from selling field chickens. The bag of chili peppers gave her 100 yuan and she was lying in the space at the moment, with no intention of taking it out. The two of them hurriedly left the city, only to see a family sitting under the wall, eagerly looking at the city gate. Yizhen's eyes were sharp, and he was the first to see his father and immediately jumped up. Dad, second sister, you have come back. He was so hungry that he drank water and ran away, his stomach swaying along. In addition to an empty bag, there is also a lotus leaf bag on the cart, which you don't need to ask to know is for food. The wrinkles on Mrs. Ye's face suddenly eased, and she knew that this granddaughter was a lucky egg. So all of that has been sold. Well, mother, we have silver now, we definitely won't starve to death. Yi Ying smiled and carefully pulled out his wallet from his waist. He handed it to his mother with both hands, and Yixing also pulled out a money bag from the bottom of the car. Anyway, it was the result of the whole family's labor. Silver. Can a field chicken really sell silver? Mrs. Yi held her purse in her arms, very cautious and not intending to look. As the saying goes, wealth is not revealed, they are still refugees and have no ability to protect their property. No, those field chickens were sold for 800 yuan. These were obtained from Xinger's recipe. Hehe, we've met a good person. In his understanding, it was only through the blessings of bodhisattvas that he met virtuous people. Although the dishes were fragrant, they were not worth 4 taels of silver. Sister, I'm hungry. Yizhen couldn't help it anymore. He had already smelled the meat, but the adults were still talking, so he had to hold on to his sister and whispered, "Oh, Milk is also hungry. Let's eat slowly as we go. We haven't eaten much in 2 days, and it's easy to choke if it's too fast." Yixing handed a steamed bun, but old lady Yi was stunned for a moment. She quickly reached out and took it, biting it tightly. The purse in her arms was hard, and even after experiencing so much wind and rain, the shock was too great. How many years has it been? Her family has never seen silver before. Steamed buns and mantou, 1 for each person. My mother also eats steamed buns. Bai Shi was reluctant to leave it to her husband and children. She took a small bite of mantou and was stuffed with meat by her son. Milk, we have reached an agreement with the restaurant to send them field chickens every day, weighing 8 yuan per kilogram. Once we have eaten, let's go find a place to live. Their blankets are still wet, and covering them is even colder than not covering them. Really? That's great, 8 yuan per kilogram, it's the same price as meat. Before Mrs. Yi could speak, Uncle almost jumped up. He used to do odd jobs and did well, only earning 10 or 8 cents a day. Yi Wei and Yi Yu also had their eyes lit up. Second sister is really amazing, they finally don't have to go hungry. There are many people building sheds on the hillside over there. How about we also go and build one? If the third party comes, they won't get separated. Grandmother pondered for a moment and finally made a decision. Yi Xing suddenly remembered that there were still 2 strong laborers in their family, but it was currently a rainy season and living in a shed would be very uncomfortable. Mrs. Yi is slightly apologetic. Waiting for the third child is one reason, and most importantly, she does not want to spend money. This money is a hope for rebuilding her home and cannot be used casually. Milk, I have another idea. Although field chickens can sell for money, their quantity is limited and they don't need so many people. Besides, when the weather gets cold, this thing disappears. We still need to think of a long-term livelihood. This thing is just for eating fresh food. If you give too much, it will be difficult for the restaurant to sell it. I'm right, but we are all farmers. What kind of livelihood can we make? After a while, your uncle and father will have to go home and take a look. Although we don't have much land, those crops are also food for survival. Let's open another food stall. It won't cost much, just buy some bowls and chopsticks. Leaving aside the fact that the startup funds are very abundant and there is no need to hoard raw materials for snacks, it belongs to small budget trading. Old Mrs. Yi quickly swallowed the mantou in her mouth, and looked at her granddaughter with bright eyes. Women in the family can do this job, and even if they don't earn much, they can make a round belly. Just sell some soup and rice. Auntie and I make it very delicious. Let's make a big pot and cook it early in the morning. Sister is responsible for doing the chores, while Nai and Nyang serve the guests. My younger brother and I wash dishes and pick firewood. The family had a clear division of labor, but Mrs. Yi shook her head. Let Yuer take Xiaojun with her, and you still need to focus on the other end of the restaurant. Just help me when you have time. That is to say, she is not allowed to do fixed things, and she focuses on both sides. The elderly person is wise and knows that this granddaughter has many ideas. The family rubbed their hands together and suddenly had hope in life. They decided to find a place to build a shelter first. Fortunately, there are no urban management or similar facilities here. As long as it is a wasteland, no one will manage it. Considering the convenience of doing business, Yi Xing found a place near the intersection and planned to build a simple tea house. Unexpectedly, just as they measured the size, 2 people shook hands and walked over. Hey, what are you guys doing? What are you doing here? Yi Ming quickly walked over and smiled, saying, we are from Yuanbao town, and our family has been hit by a disaster. During this rain, the elderly and children can't bear it and want to build a shelter here. After speaking, he turned around and saw that this was indeed a barren slope, with a moat behind it. Building a shack. There's no such thing as this. Go ahead and stay where it's cool. No groundbreaking is allowed here. After finishing speaking, she didn't leave, just looked at their luggage. Yi Xing understood that this was to extort money, and in the future, doing business would not be without this kind of harassment. In order to do it once and for all, she decided to take a gamble. We are going to deliver goods to Xiangxiangxia. Look, this is the right sign to enter the city. If you live far away, you may miss out on the master's business. She revealed the opponent's card, and those few people had extraordinary magnanimity, especially the big black guy. Even the restaurant owner respected him. The little thug was a local and should know the depth of the situation. Sure enough, the 2 of them looked at each other's cards and were obviously surprised. They didn't say anything and just waved their hands before turning and leaving. Yi Xing looked at their backs thoughtfully, lost in thought, when suddenly he heard Uncle's words, Xinger, can we start working? Ah, of course I can. First, measure the size. Dad, go and inquire where to buy this wood. Tea houses must be simple, usually made of lightweight materials such as wood and bamboo. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. The Earth Moves Again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The Earth Moves Again. You don't need to buy wood. I see there are many bamboo forests at the foot of the mountain over there. Let's go chop bamboo and buy a few more reed mats, and then add thick thatch. Uncle guarantees that there won't be any rain. He chuckled, feeling so happy for the first time after the earthquake. That night, a few children went to catch field chickens, and the adults prepared the materials for building the shed. Even Uncle and Bai joined in. They couldn't carry a single one, so the two of them carried it. Grandma was looking at the property on the slope and also casually trimming the burrs on the bamboo. Yi Xing and his team had enough of 2 bags, so they put them back in their hands. Rare things are precious, and if there are too many, they are not worth any money. The next day, Yi Wei pushed the car and accompanied her to deliver the goods. When he went to the back door, he saw that it was the man who received the goods that day. He smiled pleasantly at her. "Hey, little girl, came early. The shopkeeper even praised me for my good fortune and making the benefactor happy. Why did I give less gifts today? In fact, the items sent yesterday were not sold out and are still being kept in a large vat." Yi Xing is a bit funny. It seems that business was good yesterday. She pointed at the bag with a smile on her face. "There are only 2 bags today. It's getting harder and harder to grab these things. You can ask someone to weigh them up." That person personally introduced himself and loudly counted, 471, if only there were more tomorrow. They agreed to settle the bill with cash, and Yi Wei took the money string and carefully counted it before putting it into the bag. "Uncle Jian, let's go. Say hello to the shopkeeper for me and come back tomorrow." The two of them arrived at the market, and today they are also responsible for buying and opening a shop. They not only need to buy some bowls and chopsticks, but also food and vegetables. "Big brother, let's go separately. You go to the market, and I go to the grocery store. When it comes to bargaining, I'm still good at it. I spent a lot of money this time, so I'm sure I could save a bit." Yi Xing looked inside and saw that there were really a lot of goods here. "Little girl, what do you want?" The shopkeeper was a young old man in his 50s, very kind. "I want to set up a stall at home to sell some tea and food. Do you have cheap tables, chairs, and bowls and chopsticks here? If you can buy a second-hand one, that would be perfect. What a coincidence you've come here. There's a small stall that's not making any more, and I'm selling the entire set on behalf of you. Look, it's all piled up over there. If you can finish it, you can give me 100 yuan. Yi Xing ran over to take a look and found that the things were a bit old, probably a few times spilled. The tables and chairs were a bit dirty, but they were still quite sturdy when shaken. The rough bowl didn't have many notches, so it couldn't be replaced at any time. "Okay, at the price you mentioned, can we deliver the goods? My car is too small to fit these tables and chairs." The shopkeeper readily agreed, and Yi Xing picked out some coarse pottery jars to hold grain. The gaps in the thatched cottage were large, so we had to guard against mice and so on. We made a deal on this side and went to the next grain shop. Yi Wei happened to come over as well. The siblings bought grain and then moved the things they were afraid of touching into their own car. Only then did they follow the big cart and head out of the city. 3 days later, the tea house of the Yi family stood up. There were 2 rooms in the back, with men and women sleeping together. A large stove was built in the front, and 3 tables were placed under the shed. The whole family was very satisfied. Although it was simple, there was finally a place to shelter from the wind and rain. During the day, Yi Wei and Yi Zhen went to pick firewood because they needed to cook and used a lot of firewood. Yi Ming and Yi Ying were not idle and still went to the city to do odd jobs, while the women in the tea house were taking care of them. Uncle's wife makes the simplest vegetarian soup rice, and most of the customers are small merchants and vendors. Some refugees come to beg for a bowl of water, and old lady Yi never refuses, even giving some thin soup. Milk, there have been more people at the city gate these days. I heard that our area has moved again, although it's not as powerful as last time, it's also very scary. Yi Yu usually doesn't say anything, but she is meticulous and can remember anything anyone says. There are people coming and going here, and there is also a lot of news. Upon hearing this, old lady Yi became panicked, and her youngest son has not received a single letter yet. Xing'er, where do you think Uncle San can go? He won't go south, will he? If that uncle's family didn't tell him the news, it's also very likely that he will pursue south. Nai, guess, is Uncle San bringing his third aunt over by himself, or is he pulling a big family? Mrs. Yi did not hesitate, you must have brought it all with you. Your third aunt is the eldest daughter and won't leave her younger siblings behind. Her son, she knows, has always been a kind and righteous child. That's it, can they walk so fast with their families? We had a car back then. It is said that Aunt San's father has inconvenient legs and feet, and there may not even be a unicycle at home. Mrs. Yi was slightly relieved, but she had always been restless. When Uncle and Dad returned tonight, they happily took out today's income. Mom, I'm really lucky today. A member of the staff is going to repair a wall. They agreed to work for 3 days and give me 10 won a day. Although it cannot be compared to the income of children, it is always better than not. Tea houses can earn a living even if they earn a little. They need to earn more money in order to rebuild their homes. Are you all thinking about making money? The third person hasn't received a letter yet, isn't he in a hurry? Mrs. Yi crouched her face, drank a bowl of soup and rice, and went to the backyard in a flurry. The firewood the children picked up was piled up behind the house, and she carried it in every day. The two big men looked at each other. They hadn't thought about their third younger brother, but in this situation, they couldn't leave their mother behind. Besides, if the third younger brother went to take care of the Yu family, would they still have to worry about it? What did Mom say today? How about we go to my uncle's house again after finishing these 3 days and ask him if he has gone? Uncle whispered to Aunt Wang, but Yi Yu couldn't help but wait for her to speak. Dad, I heard that there has been some ground movement over there, and I'm worried about it. The ground is moving again. When did it happen? How good is this? I don't know if the third person has come out yet. Yi Ying is also anxious, no wonder her mother is shameless. They really don't care about her younger brother. It's just an aftershock, there won't be anything wrong. Don't go pick firewood tomorrow, little brother. You just wait at the intersection. If Uncle San comes over, you can bring them back. That's it. Jenner will go to the intersection tomorrow and wait. Grandmother happened to be back, and upon hearing these words, she was immediately happy. She must be a reliable granddaughter, more effective than those two big men. In the evening, Yi Wei and his siblings went to the rice paddy as usual, but as soon as the torch was lit today, 2 people rushed out. Ah, we caught you. What are you doing? Why did you come to my house? The person who came is also 2.5 big boys. It should be because I heard that someone has come to the field, and I have been waiting here tonight. We are catching insects and haven't stepped on the rice straw. If you don't believe us, look. Yi Wei quickly smiled as they had already thought of this day. After all, it was someone else's rice field, catching insects. How would you be so good? Go, don't go here. If we find out again, don't blame me for being impolite. The child clenched his fist and threatened. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Uncle San Comes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Uncle San Comes. Yi Wei didn't want to cause trouble. After all, this was their territory, so he quickly pulled his siblings away from the land. Brother, this is just a rice field here. Where are we going to catch it? Yuer asked in grievance, not to mention agreeing to the supply. This money is still the largest income in the family. If it is lost, what should we do to build a house? Heading north, I remember there are also rice paddies over there. Jenner, if you can't walk, go back first. Yixing nodded to himself. This big brother is quite reliable, and the little one straightened up and said with great righteousness, I won't go home, so can I do what you can do? As they watched their younger brother run away first, all three of them laughed. Brother, actually this thing is not only found in rice paddies, but also on the riverbank. It's just a matter of distinguishing it. Because there are also many toads on the riverbank, which are poisonous. There is a lot of water grass on the riverbank, but it is very dangerous. Maybe 1 foot will sink into the river. When the rice fields can no longer be caught, let's go there. Under the moonlight, Yi Wei's young face had a faint persistence. He had always been quiet, but did a lot of work. Yixing really liked this brother. The rice fields over there are not very big, and they only had 1 bag after grabbing them all night. A few children were a bit frustrated, but only Yixing smiled and said, not too little, this thing was originally meant to be fresh. I'll go talk to the shopkeeper today and ask him to raise the price a bit, after all, scarcity is precious. In fact, as early as the first day she came up with this idea, she put a lot of it into the space rice field, and by now it had already made a gurgling sound. Just take a bag to put it in. Brother, I'll go and deliver it myself today. In order to avoid revealing anything, she planned to go alone to deliver the goods, but as soon as she finished speaking, she saw a madman running towards them from across the street. Yi Weidun picked up his crutch and blocked his siblings behind him. Where, it's you guys. I'm third uncle, it's third uncle. The madman hugged Yi Wei as soon as he came up, and he burst into tears. The children were all stunned. How did the third uncle, whom my grandmother had been longing for, become like this? Behind him, there are several identical beggars. Except for the third aunt, those beggars are all children. This is your 3 aunts' younger siblings, but finally I've seen them. Where are you? Where do you live? Yixing's heart sank. Although San Auntie's family was poor, his parents were still there. Now that he was taking his siblings out, the old man might have had more misfortune than good, especially since they were all dressed in rags, but upon closer inspection, they all carried filial piety. Outside Fengxian City, Uncle San, Nai, and his family were all in a state of anxiety. Every day, Xiaozhen waited at the intersection, and you finally arrived. Yi Wei also woke up from shock, excited. It was getting late at this time, so Yixing pushed the cart alone to the city. She found a back alley and unknowingly took out another bag. After delivering the goods, she went straight to the cloth shop without daring to ask for fine cloth. She only asked for a few pieces of coarse cloth. Uncle San and his clothes were really unbearable. After coming out of the cloth shop, she went to the meat stall to buy some meat and bones. These days, she has become familiar with them outside the city. Grain and vegetables can be purchased from farmers' homes at much cheaper prices than in the city. Returning to the tea house, one can see several more busy figures from afar. Sister, have you come back? Yixin happily welcomed him, and at a young age, he was able to push the cart. Seeing the meat and bones, his smiling eyes became a crack. Oh, why did you still buy meat? Didn't you say there was only 1 bag today? Auntie was not in front of the stove today, but instead sat idle at the table outside because it was still early and there were not many guests. Is this accusing her of spending money? Yixing pursed his lips and didn't say a word. He picked up the meat and went to the back. They fled to this place. Today, the family finally reunited. What's wrong with eating some meat? My dear has a heart. I heard there's only 1 bag of field chickens today, and there's so much money left. The daily money needs to be handed over to my grandmother. The old lady has bad eyesight and can tell about how much it costs at first glance. With the money in her hands, it's still as much as before. Hello Manager Lu, you gave us an increase in money today. The wrinkles on the old lady's face all smiled, and she felt like a mirror in her heart. If it weren't for her granddaughter, how could there be so many good people? She must have a sweet mouth. Eat more meat later. Go to bed quickly, I've been tired all night. Uncle and the 3 brothers are not here. It seems that they have gone to do odd jobs together. Aunt San is busy in the stove, and seeing her red eyes, she has already cried. Hey, your third aunt is really pitiful. Both parents are gone. Go to bed quickly. Mom still needs to go out and help. With a few more people, I can't even sleep tonight. San Auntie has 2 younger sisters and 1 younger brother, which means they need to add 3 more people to their house. It's really hard to fit them in, no wonder Aunt has a calm face. It wasn't until dinner that Yixing found out what Uncle San had gone through during this period. Amidst a sigh, time returned to that day. Uncle and Aunt returned to Lujiang, and as soon as they arrived at the village entrance, they saw their neighbor Xiao Wang. Chuyer, hurry home, Uncle and Auntie are buried. Lu let out a buzzing sound and ran forward, but there were broken walls everywhere and there was no road under her feet. Fortunately, her house was located at the foot of the mountain, and the general direction could not be wrong. They arrived home and saw that their yard was gone, replaced by half a mountain of dirt. Big sister, sob. A few children burst into tears when they saw them. It turned out that the old couple woke up early that night and called the children out, but they rushed back to grab some food. Unexpectedly, the back mountain slipped and the entire yard was buried. Although the Lu family is a big family, they are all on the run at this moment. The Lu family looked at her siblings and then at her husband, unsure of what to do. Kowtow to your parents, let's take them with us. The oldest one is only 12 years old, not carrying it is a dead end. So, they worked hard all the way and even encountered robbery before finally meeting them. Aunt San listened to Uncle San's narration and nervously looked at her mother. Law. In such difficult times, how many people can stay with relatives to eat? She has been nervous all day, afraid of driving her younger siblings away. I have made the decision. The 3 children of the Lu family will stay temporarily. When we return to our hometown, we will send them back. Your parents are gone, but there are still members of the Lu family, and there is no reason to stay in the Yi family for a long time. After hearing these words, everyone's faces looked good. Lu was extremely grateful and took his younger siblings to kowtow to the old lady. Her family still has more than an acre of land, and when the disaster passes, her younger siblings will definitely go back, as long as they have a bite to eat now. But the question is, where do they sleep at night in such a big place? Sweep the tea house clean tonight, and the boss will sleep outside with the men. It's not too cold today, and you're not afraid of people watching. This means that the man's room was vacated and allocated to the women, and Yixing gave a thumbs up to his grandmother. End of this chapter.